Do you ever wonder what those big flashing red lights, bells, and gates are supposed to mean at railroad crossings? Well, you'd be surprised how many people don't even see them or just choose to ignore them. Well, they're designed to activate when a train is some distance away from the crossing and warn people of the oncoming train. No one should ever try to beat a train across the gates, but people still do, even to this day, even truck drivers. And it was one such accident that helped shine light on such an issue. On March 15, 1999, Amtrak Train 59, the city of New Orleans, was running southbound from Chicago, Illinois to New Orleans, Louisiana. The train was hauled by two P-40DCs, 807 and 829. 207 passengers and 21 crew members were on board the train, including a few high schoolers from Jackson, Mississippi, returning from a skiing trip. The fifth car, which was a sleeper car, was also packed. Tickets were sold out for that particular car. As passengers sat down to relax, have a drink, or to sleep for the night, they had no idea what they were in for. At a railroad crossing in Bourbonnias, Illinois, 58-year-old John R. Stokes was driving his truck loaded with steel and was approaching the crossing at 9:47 p.m. The train was already beginning to approach the crossing at 79 miles an hour, but strangely the crossings didn't activate just yet as the train got a few miles close. Eventually they finally did, but Stokes proceeded through the crossing, disregarding the signals. He thought he could beat the train across without his load shifting off the truck. The engineer spotted this, and he knew he would never clear the tracks in time. So he hit the emergency brakes hard, and just when Stokes thinks he's safely across, the train clips the back of the trailer and swings it out of the way. The locomotives shift out of balance off the track from the collision and derail. 11 of the superliner coaches behind the train also derail and pile up with the engines. The sight was stunning and horrifying. The train cars zigzagged into what looks like a tree, or a key, depending how you look at it. The engines spill their fuel from the force of the collision, and burning fuel leaks into a few of the coaches, including that one fully booked sleeper car. Passengers were tossed around by the force. It's amazing that anyone could have survived such a violent crash. When rescue crews arrived, they had a hard time getting people out of the train cars while firefighters battled that diesel fuel-fed fire. In the end, 13 people died. 122 were injured. Stokes, however, was lucky the cab of his truck wasn't hit by the train, but despite that luck, he also sustained minor injuries. After the accident, it was clear that truck driver Stokes was the main one at fault for the crash. He had a string of various traffic violations in the past, and this one was no exception. Even his trucking company, Melco, was guilty of different safety violations over the years. However, the Illinois State Police, which conducted their own separate investigation on the crash, stated that the railroad crossings may have either failed or was too late to warn about the train. After the front axle of the train passes over the beginning of the approach circuit, it would take approximately 20 seconds to fully activate the crossings and have the gates fully down, as federally required. However, since the train was going really fast, the crossings couldn't activate fast enough for the train. One person said that the crossing gates began to come down just as the front of the train actually made it to the crossing. Even Stokes said that they didn't go off before his truck was literally sitting on the tracks. While this was true and confirmed by the chief engineer for the company that manufactured the track detection equipment, Harman Industries, it still doesn't excuse Stokes' behavior to try and beat that train. He was also not fully rested apparently at the time of the crash, which may have impaired his judgment. In the end, on September 21st, 2004, Stokes was charged with logbook and hours of service violations and sentenced to 2 years in prison. He also lost his job at Melco and his license. Melco and Stokes also had to settle plaintiffs in over 31 cases relating to the crash. It was later found out that Stokes had multiple violations that required his attendance of traffic school 5 times in 3 different counties, which should have resulted in his license being suspended at the time of the wreck. If that happened, this wreck probably would have been avoided. He later died in February 2007. The NTSB made loads of recommendations, mainly regarding railroad crossings, including having event recording devices installed in them and better passenger reading lists for rescuers to read. It's been 19 years since this crash, and people still try to drive around the gates at railroad crossings, and people still get killed by them. But with the right education, understanding, not to mention learning how to drive and be patient, we should see these kind of accidents decrease in years' time. But I just don't think we're there yet, sadly. Be safe when you're driving, and don't drive around the gates at railroad crossings. I don't want to record a death on tape!